All right, let's talk king cobras. 18 feet long, venomous. I mean, that's the stuff of nightmares, right? But also kind of awesome when you think about it. And if you're listening to this, you're probably like us.
Yeah.
You want to know the coolest stuff about nature, but without all the fluff.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're here. We're going to do a deep dive into everything king cobra. We've got some great sources here, really fascinating stuff.
So we're talking about what they look like, where they hang out, how they hunt, what makes them so unique, all that good stuff. Plus, we'll touch on how they fit into the whole ecosystem thing and even how they show up in, like, myths and pop culture.
Absolutely. And of course, we'll also look at the threats they're facing and what's being done to protect them.
Okay, so first things first, size. These guys are the heavyweight champs of the venomous snake world, right? What makes them so physically impressive?
Well, I mean, as you said, their length is just incredible. The average adult is something like 10 to 13 feet, which is already huge.
I'm kidding.
But they can get even bigger, some reaching over 18 feet. That's longer than most cars. That size definitely helps them when it comes to hunting and even just, establishing dominance in their territory.
Makes sense. And what about their coloring? I know they have those bands, right? Are those just for looks?
Good question. They're usually olive green, tan, or black with those pale yellow cross bands. And those bands, they actually provide pretty good camouflage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, helps them blend in with all the leaves and shadows and stuff, whether they're stalking prey or trying to avoid being someone else's lunch. And speaking of intimidating, we got to talk about the hood, that iconic cobra hood.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely the most striking thing about them. How do they even do that?
It's pretty wild, actually. They have these elongated ribs behind their skull, and when they feel threatened or want to show off, they can push those ribs outward.
So it's like they're puffing themselves up, kind of?
Yeah, exactly. Flattens and widens the neck, creates that classic hood shape. It's a super clear signal that they're ready to rumble. And of course, there's the hiss that goes with it. Can't forget that.
Yeah, that's got to be scary to hear in person. Makes you wonder how good their other senses are, too. What about their eyesight?
Well, their vision is incredible, actually. They've got those large eyes with vertical pupils, which is common in daytime hunters.
Helps them see better during the day, you mean?
Exactly. They can spot the slightest movement from far away, super helpful for finding food and staying out of danger. Plus, they've got the classic forked tongue, like most snakes.
Right, the tongue, is that for taste or?
Not quite taste, but it's how they pick up scents. That tongue is constantly flicking in and out, picking up tiny particles from the air, and those particles tell them all sorts of stuff about their surroundings, like where prey is or if there's a predator nearby.
So it's like a super-powered sense of smell.
Yeah, you could say that. And it's incredibly important for navigating their world.
What about the rest of their skin? Are those scales smooth, rough?
Smooth and glossy. It probably helps them move through all sorts of terrain without too much friction and maybe even keeps them a bit drier.
Makes sense. And their eyes, you mentioned they're good for daytime hunting. What about in low light?
They do just fine there, too, actually. Those vertical pupils, they can adjust to let in just the right amount of light so they can see clearly whether it's bright sunshine or almost dark.
Wow, so these guys are basically built for hunting, which brings us to the venom, the big one. What makes the king cobra bite so dangerous?
Well, it's primarily neurotoxic, which means it messes with the communication between nerve cells. Basically, it paralyzes the victim and eventually shuts down their breathing.
Yikes. That's not good.
Nope. And the thing is, while their venom might not be the most toxic per drop compared to some other snakes, they inject a huge amount of it. Plus, their fangs are incredibly efficient at delivering that venom.
So it's like a double whammy. Tons of venom, delivered perfectly. How much are we talking here? Enough to kill a person, I imagine?
Oh, way more than that. One bite can contain enough venom to take down an elephant. Or, yeah, up to 20 humans. Scary stuff.
No kidding. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Where do these guys actually live? What's their ideal neighborhood look like?
Their main stomping grounds are in Southeast Asia. We're talking India, China, Thailand, the Philippines, even down to Indonesia. They're pretty widespread. And they really like to be near water.
Rivers, lakes, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Streams, rivers, swamps, all of that. Provides them with plenty of water, of course, and those areas tend to have lots of their favorite food, other snakes.
Oh, right, I forgot. They're primarily snake eaters.
Yeah.
So they're sticking to pretty specific habitats then.
Well, they're actually pretty adaptable. You'll find them in dense forests, bamboo thickets, mangroves, even grasslands and some agricultural areas. They're not too picky as long as there's food and water nearby. And they can handle different climates, too. Lowlands, hills, tropical, subtropical.
So they're kind of all over the place. Makes sense, given their range. And speaking of getting around, are they good swimmers? Given their love of water, I'd imagine so.
Oh, yeah, they're great swimmers. They need to be to navigate all those swamps and rivers. And it comes in handy for hunting, too, especially for aquatic prey.
That's pretty cool. So we know what they look like, where they live. Let's talk about how they actually hunt. I mean, eating other snakes, that's got to be a challenge.
It definitely is. They're called Ophiophagus, Hannah, for a reason that literally translates to snake eater. And yeah, other snakes are their main food source, both venomous and non-venomous.
So they're not afraid of a little danger. Do they ever eat anything else?
They'll take what they can get, you know? They've been known to snack on small mammals, birds, lizards, but snakes are definitely their top choice.
I guess it makes sense, given where they live. Now, are they the kind of snake that lies in wait, or do they actively go after their prey?
They're actually pretty active hunters. They use their amazing eyesight and that incredible sense of smell to track down their meals.
So they're not just hiding in the bushes waiting to strike.
They can do that too, of course. They'll use their camouflage to blend in and ambush unsuspecting prey. But they also chase after their meals sometimes, and they can move surprisingly fast.
So they're a bit more versatile than people might think. And of course, they've got that venom to help them out.
Exactly. It immobilizes the prey almost instantly, which is crucial when you're dealing with other snakes that might fight back. Less risk of injury for the king cobra that way.
Yeah, smart move. And you mentioned earlier that they're apex predators, which means they're pretty important for the ecosystem. How so?
They're basically the top dogs, keeping everything else in check. By hunting other snakes and small animals, they make sure no one species gets too out of control.
So they're like the population control officers.
Kind of, yeah. If their numbers drop, you can get an overabundance of other animals, which can throw the whole ecosystem off balance.
So having king cobras around is actually a good sign. It means the environment is healthy.
Exactly. They're a sign of a diverse and thriving ecosystem.
That's really interesting. And we talked earlier about them showing up in myths and stuff. What's the cultural significance of the king cobra?
Oh, they're a big deal in a lot of cultures, especially in Southeast Asia. In Hinduism, they're often associated with Lord Shiva, who's sometimes depicted with a cobra around his neck.
That's pretty cool. What does that symbolize?
Power, protection, divine energy, all that. They pop up in lots of myths and legends representing all sorts of things, life and death, danger and wisdom, fear and respect. They're really woven into the fabric of those cultures.
It's amazing how an animal can have such a strong cultural presence. And I've heard that their venom is sometimes used in traditional medicine. Is that true?
Yeah, in some very specific practices and tiny, carefully measured doses, it's thought to have some healing properties. But this is serious stuff you'd never want to mess around with it yourself. It needs to be done by experts with tons of knowledge and experience.
Definitely not a DIY project. Makes sense. And what about today? How do we see them portrayed in movies and books and stuff?
Pretty much how you'd expect. Danger, mystery, untamed power. They're a classic symbol of the wild, you know? They're often used to create suspense or represent some hidden threat.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So, from ancient myths to modern movies, they've always held a certain fascination for us. Now, let's circle back to their unique features. That hood display is pretty remarkable.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We talked about the ribs, but it's not just about the hood itself. They can lift a third of their body off the ground while doing that. Imagine that.
That's crazy. And they're hissing at the same time, right?
Yep. It's a pretty effective warning signal, I'd say. And we've touched on the venom, but it's worth repeating just how potent it is. It might not be the most toxic per drop, but they inject so much of it.
Enough to kill an elephant, as you said.
Exactly. It's a serious weapon, and it's a good reminder to always be respectful and cautious around these creatures.
Absolutely. Keep your distance. Speaking of, we haven't talked much about conservation efforts. What are the biggest threats to king cobras these days?
The usual suspects, unfortunately. Habitat loss is a major one. Deforestation for agriculture and development is shrinking their territory.
Yeah, that's a problem for a lot of animals. Anything else?
Poaching is another big one. People hunt them for their skin, their meat, and even their venom. It's a huge problem in some areas.
That's terrible. But surely people are trying to protect them, right?
Oh, yeah. There are lots of conservation programs going on. Habitat preservation is a major focus, protecting the forests and wetlands where they live.
Makes sense. What else are people doing?
Well, there are stricter laws and enforcement against poaching, and scientists are doing a lot of research to understand them better, which helps with conservation efforts. And of course, education is key.
Educating people about why they're important, right?
Exactly. A lot of it comes down to changing people's perceptions, helping them understand that king cobras are a vital part of the ecosystem and that we need to coexist peacefully.
So it's a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Protect their habitat, stop poaching, and educate people.
Exactly. It's a big task, but it's crucial to ensure these amazing creatures have a future.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. For our listeners who are just tuning in, what are the key takeaways about king cobras?
Well, first off, they're the longest venomous snake in the world, with some individuals exceeding 18 feet in length. They've got that iconic hood, smooth scales, incredible eyesight, and a super-powered sense of smell thanks to their forked tongue.
And let's not forget that potent venom.
Right, definitely not something to mess with. We talked about their preferred habitat, how they actively hunt other snakes, and their critical role in maintaining a balanced ecosystem.
And we even touched on their cultural significance, how they're viewed in mythology and pop culture.
It's been a fascinating look at a truly remarkable creature.
Absolutely. I hope everyone listening has gained a new appreciation for the king cobra. It's a creature that deserves both our respect and our protection.
I agree. And it leaves us with a final thought. In a world where humans have such a big impact, what's our responsibility to protect these amazing creatures? It's a question worth pondering.
It definitely is. And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of the king cobra.
It's been a pleasure.